Hi there, Douglas Young here for Bringing Hope Ministries, and this week Pastor Fess is away, but last week he sat down and had a conversation with Jonny Pragashpathy of the Table Intercultural Church. The Table is a church plant at Fanshawe College that's aiming to reach students, international students, and Jonny Pragashpathy planted that church 2 years ago with his wife, Michaela. Enjoy the conversation that Pastor Fess and Jonny had.
So Jonny, talk to us a little bit about your call to ministry.
So this would have happened, I want to say somewhere between definitely somewhere in my second year. I was in a program in kinesiology and I was pursuing to be a physiotherapist. And I also, while I was doing my studies, I saw a friend from first year who did a program through YWAM, Youth with a Mission. And I kind of assessed his before and after. And he was a pretty cool guy before he went to YWAM. But then when he came back, there was just an air about him. And like the Holy Spirit was definitely evident and present within this guy. And so that was something I wanted for myself. And so after my second year, and I'd been sort of feeling this draw towards figuring out how to serve the Lord in what capacity. I hadn't known where. In my idea, I thought, I'd be a physiotherapist. I could talk to my patients about Jesus while fixing their bodies up. That was my thought. And so I go to YWAM and I enroll in a course and I'm in the UK for 7 months and still not really knowing where, but I felt the Lord say, just come and see and come and experience. And so I was introduced to a whole slew of avenues of ministry, whether it's just like street evangelism, preaching in the prison in the Philippines. And the biggest one that really struck to me was campus ministry at the university town we were in the UK. And that's consistently been a theme ever since I got back. I switched programs from kinesiology into a theology program. I picked up a sociology minor just so I can get with the times and the cultural context of Canada. But the central theme was identifying people in the specific seasons of life where they're figuring out themselves and journeying with them to see how does God fit into all this. I think, growing up, and my own family would say this to me too, that you have to balance your spiritual life with the rest of your life. Right. And I don't think I believe that. I think following Jesus is 100% thing. And it's not a balance. It's my life starts with Jesus at the center. And everything else, my education, my vocation, my relationship, my marriage, even my hobbies, they are all pieces that hinge on that fundamental truth. And so for these students, it's how do we get from this posture of balancing spiritual life, but actually moving deeper into, no, my life is centered around Jesus. How is my education and my eventual pursuit of work going to be in line with that identity?
So you graduated from theology.
Yes.
So what brought you to London, or how did you get to London?
Yeah. So what brought me to London was at the time I was a part of Lift Church in Hamilton, and I was interning at the Brock site in St. Catharines, and then I helped plant the Mohawk College site with a friend named Dan. And there was a gala. Lift has a gala every year, and it's really big, and a lot of people come. And Robin, the lead pastor of Lift, he pitched out this vision, and this was in 2019. He's like, we want to see 10 campus churches planted by 2026. And so then a young, zealous Jonny was like, yes, let's do it. Right. And then for some reason, London just stuck out to me in 2019. Being like a Hamilton, Toronto boy, and never having to go west beyond Brantford, London was kind of like Narnia to me. Right. We would hear about Western University and Fanshawe, and the reputation was like, oh yeah, girls in London were like more attractive or something like that. All the young adult teenage guys were raving about it. So I was curious, like, what is the Lord doing in London? I don't know. Why is there no Lift Church site in London? I don't know. And so that piqued my curiosity. That's one. And then during that time, I was also getting involved in a ministry called Move In, which is all about living in and amongst the unreached urban poor. And so a bunch of my good friends in Hamilton were part of it. And then I went to a conference for Move In. And then I saw a girl who happened to wear a Fanshawe hoodie. And this happens to be my wife. This is Michaela. And I go up to her. I'm like, hey, I'm interested in knowing about your school. Take me on a tour one day. And so it was all business and professional. And then obviously, you know the story now has turned to much more.
Right.
But yeah, Michaela is what brought me to London. And had she had not worn that hoodie at this missions conference, I don't think I would have been here or married to her. So that is what drew me.
Well, it's great to have you in London.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's kind of become home for you now.
Absolutely.
You've got a
Absolutely.
wife, and you've bought a home, and now you have a child on the horizon. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. You did talk a little bit about your heart for students, and do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that when it pertains to Fanshawe? Like, what is it that attracted you to Fanshawe and the students there?
Yeah, so I think what really attracted me to Fanshawe was kind of similar to what drew me to Mohawk College when I was helping out at Lift Church, was they're shorter programs, and most people would see, you know, the idea of quick turnover to be very stressful. And for me, it was kind of flip side. It's sort of exciting, but also I definitely knew the student landscape was different than a university. Because at a college campus, you have your classic 18-year-old who enrolls, but you also have mature students, you have second career students, and you have people who are older in life just want to get just a bit more education in something. And that was the story of my mom. You know, she was working in a factory for many years, and then she got injured at work and got carpal tunnel, and so WSIB paid for her to get a college diploma at Mohawk. And so I saw also, as much as there's these students who are young and malleable, I also saw people like my mom who could have used someone to pour into. And that just drew me to Fanshawe, the diversity in students.
Yes,
Yeah.
and diversity as well in terms of international students
100%.
that have come
100%.
to London.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about launching the church and how that kind of worked, and maybe even some of the obstacles that you were confronted with.
Absolutely,
and how you
yeah.
overcame that.
Yeah, well, you were a great help in launching the church. As used to be the lead pastor of Royal View, and you took me on as shepherding the young adults of the church. And then I remember when I first got hired at Royal View, and something that you pitched out to me was the desire was you want to see Royal View find a way to support the students of Fanshawe. And that's when Red Frog started that very fall. And so that became our door in where, okay, sweet, I can recruit our Royal View young adults to help with Red Frogs. All right, I've completed that objective. And then the conversation went further when you guys suggested that Michaela and I should plant a church for Fanshawe. And, that moment was a big kind of circle moment for both Michaela and I, because I had that zeal back in 2019, and obviously moving to London, and then COVID and getting married, and
There was a lot going on during that time, right?
100%, a lot going on that time, and
And a lot to process.
exactly. And I didn't imagine that it would circle back like that. And so Michaela and I thought to ourselves, like, wow, we talked about this at length a couple of years ago, and now this prompting is happening.
Yeah, well, I have to confess I did have an agenda.
Yeah.
And part of that agenda was your experience in campus ministry.
Yeah.
And we knew that something needed to be done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just seemed a logical fit for you guys to take that on and give leadership to that. And but it's been a lot of work for you.
Yeah.
What you've learned from that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when we launched in January 2024, it was, I'll put it, like we were very like empowered and excited. Obviously, there's a bunch of excitement leading up to the launch of something new, right?
Sure, there always is.
Yeah, and that excitement, stays for like the first month, but then you get into the next month,
Right.
and you start figure out what is the stride, who are actually coming out, who are the people that are deciding to make this, their temporary home, right? And
Yes.
and even like church for us has been a mix of home for some people, a sort of like drop-in center for others, and just a fresh air or some respite for other types of people. And so, yeah, I think, first year it was a little bit more challenging in the sense that we had to build up a team and, encourage them to stay committed to the vision,
Right.
And to the mission. It's shifting the mentality from, oh, I'm not just helping Jonny and Michaela with their venture, but I am taking ownership. I am invited.
This is
into
our thing.
This is our thing,
Yeah.
right? And that's where year 2, so January of 2025, we had a leadership meeting, and that's where everyone just locked in, and that moment where everyone just took ownership that no, this is not us helping, but this is our church, our family, and we are going to pour into it, just as you, our pastors, are pouring into it.
Right.
And so,
Right.
and yeah,
Well, it's a bit different when you're on a campus because you've got people coming and you've got people going, and now your core people are kind of graduates of Fanshawe, so that's kind of neat to see that people actually went through their program, got jobs in London, and have now become a part of the table, which I think is a cool thing. But it is a different kind of church plant in the sense that it's more of a mission, isn't it? It's a mission reaching out to the students and trying to draw them in and minister to them with the reality that they may go back to Toronto or to Hamilton or Peterborough or wherever they're from. So talk a little bit about the challenges of that.
Yeah, longevity is always going to be a difficult thing for us with turnover and just like life, right? Like a student when they're in school and they're searching for work, especially with the market where it is at now, there's no guarantee that someone who comes during their program is going to stay because they need to explore.
Right.
And at this point, any international student or domestic students, like they're going to go where the opportunity is, right? So with that being said, it's every year feels like a new beginning almost. And that first step of identifying that new beginning is when I do my Red Frogs orientation events.
Yes.
Because there'll be a new student union president every single year.
Right.
And I'll have to rebuild this relationship every single year with someone new. And thankfully, that's also been a marker that God is telling us that this door is remaining open for you.
Yes.
So continue to go through it, right? And that's been the first marker. Coming up soon, every May, to June, I'll get in touch with the new student president.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about what Red Frogs is. And they'll know just from previous years, because this will be our 5th year doing it.
Yes. Right.
And we build a strong rapport with the school. So we'll come back, hopefully, and then the Lord says, all right, you're in the green light with this president, the student union faculty and staff, you got the green light with them. All right, your ministry continues.
I think you've kind of built a good reputation there on campus, and even now with the administration. I know there for a little while there was a bit of a barrier, a wall with the administration, but more recently you've been saying that the doors have opened up.
Yeah.
So, how is that?
Sure.
What's happened?
Yeah. So financial administration, there are 3 employers working in this one institution. So there's the student union, which is their own non-for-profit. There's the college themselves, and then there's the residence buildings, and that's a different organization. And I think that's where a bunch of the confusion came, because I didn't actually know, or it wasn't clear, who my administrative battles were actually with, because there are 3 different entities. But once we sort of understood, all right, this particular activities in this jurisdiction falls under these people's governance, and the whole like renting at the college falls under these people's governance. So once we knew who exactly we are dealing with in every situation, we were able to tailor our steps
Right.
accordingly, right? And
Yeah.
so initially when we were looking at rentals when we launched, we wanted to be on campus. Now the problem was, well, there were 2 rules. One rule was if I wanted to advertise to students, I had to go to the student union. And then they said no. Second option was that I'm able to bring my own crowd of people and use a rental space in the college as a rental space for our own meetings. Now, at the time when we planted, we didn't have our own people. We were acquiring them. And so now, 2 years later, we're at this point where we do have our own people.
Yes.
So according to the residents' language and parameters, we are okay. And so I was able to leverage that, and now we'll be meeting there in May.
Hey, that's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you've been meeting off campus, but close to the campus.
Yeah.
Now you'll be in May on campus. But as well, you've been running a Alpha program.
That's correct, yeah.
So how has that been going?
Alpha has been amazing. Really, really good. I remember when we started last winter, the student president of Alpha at the time was really thrilled and did a lot of like the planning, and it was very gung-ho for it. And we got through, like, we saw just like the fruit of Alpha for that one semester. Most of the people who came were believers. But Alpha sort of became the de facto Christian club on campus because there just hadn't been anything else. Power to Change absolved because they just have leadership to pass things on to. And that's about it, really. So we were the only club who were Christian. And people came, and the most beautiful thing we saw at the end of the semester was simply a community formed. Right? All these Alpha people, they didn't just hang out during Alpha nights, but they hung out during the school. They would study together, and they became friends. And a couple of them would also come to the table as well. And then once that semester ended, the leadership all graduated. So I had to find new student leadership for this current academic year, which has been great. And 2 of them have been students that we've been able to empower from our church to take on club leadership. And another person, Elise, who has been a huge blessing to us. And the most beautiful thing is they're also first or second year students. So they have more years down their line, which means I don't have to search for new students again. But this year in particular, it was different because we stretched out Alpha spanning across the entire year. So we would do 1 week would be the curriculum, another week would be a social, and then curriculum. And then we try to implement, we need to refine this for next year, but we wanted to implement a week where we can get a professional to come in and just impart wisdom to a student, like a future employer talking to wannabe employees, right? What are some skill sets they look for, or like resume writing, or what do you look for? You know, what do professors look for in students? Just to give them wisdom, that would be good for them.
Right.
But no, Alpha has been great this year. We were able to hold a worship night a couple weeks ago on campus, and that had a great turnout as well.
Good.
So yeah, God is steadily treading ground
Yes.
on campus.
You're making headway.
We're making headway. We're making headway, and you know, the temptation can almost feel like, or there's a temptation to be like, wow, we've done something cool. Where the reality is, you know, the Lord has always been working on this.
Right.
And we're just the right people at the right time to be used for this season. And so you asked me earlier, what is something I've been learning? I've been learning to let go. I think the naturally as the person who's most invested in this, right?
Right.
There's that desire to hold things with a closed fist, right? And
Right.
you're doing all the planning, the prepping, you're shedding, you know, the tears and whatnot
Yeah.
for all this. And you want to hold on to these strategies and plans with a tight fist.
Right.
But the most liberating thing for me, and even for Makala, for our marriage as well, is just letting go and recognizing this is the Lord's.
Yes.
He's already gone before us. And it's not my ministry.
Right.
It is his.
So you're kind of raising up leaders and releasing them to lead. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Absolutely, yeah.
So what does that look like? How have you been raising up leaders? What's that whole process look like for you?
Yeah, so we run a monthly cohort that takes place in our house. So we'll feed everyone dinner. So there's like 6 of us, this cohort. And we'll go through just like different content online, and we would talk about like church operations, and we'll talk about like cross-cultural ministry and build up some of those competencies. But the biggest desire, or the greatest thing we're trying to impart, is just how do you kind of embody the life of a more mature believer, right? And you know, so I'm going through John Mark Comer's Practicing the Way right now.
Yes.
So I've been reading that book. And so as I am apprenticing under Jesus to be with him and to become like him and do the things he did, how do I encourage people who are looking at me to look at Jesus, right? And so with these leaders, it's that simple motto, right? Is recognizing, yes, you're being mentored and you're being shaped as a leader, but in that shaping process, people are already looking at you,
Right.
right? And so it's just being intentional with your presence. They're always going to have eyes on us.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
that can be an intimidating thing, can it? To know that people are watching us. But, you know, it's kind of like Jesus said, you know, come and follow me. And so he modeled certain principles and lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And he wanted them to follow him.
Absolutely.
And even the Apostle Paul said, follow me as I'm following Christ.
Absolutely.
So that's a great model of discipleship. So
So this year especially, we had a couple of people who weren't Christians come out and just explore Alpha, and like they're very encouraged, and they're at this point now, and I recall them saying like we're still figuring out where they sit with faith, but something they were able to identify was that they felt safe or more at peace around believers. And so there's something to be said that the community of believers, the community of people who are filled with the Spirit, impacts whoever enters their midst. Right? And so that's what the response has been for Alpha.
yeah. So is your congregation kind of taking on the burden of that? Then are they getting a hold of this whole thing of reaching students and reaching people in the community?
Some of them. Some of them. It is tougher for like the 9-to-5 working person to make those commitments, right? I mean, we would have our Wednesday events on a weekly basis. So like our prayer walks, for instance, we have once a month. And so that would be a point where a lot of them would come and join us in prayer.
Right.
And then games night, we'll run at the college too, and they'll come and join for that.
Good.
And so there is this heart and desire to reach out and be missional to students and to be at places where they can be.
Right.
I think just for their own timing optimization, it's tough for them to go during the day and to be with students. But I think as more and more students come, and the more we encourage people to really take up or recognize that, you know, as someone who's more mature in faith, you don't have to be like mature, but if you're at level 2, someone in level 1 is automatically going to want to latch onto you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
I've often thought with discipleship, you should have someone who's kind of ahead of you and then somebody who's behind you.
absolutely.
And so someone's always pouring into you,
Yeah.
and then you're pouring into somebody else. I think that's a good framework
100%.
to use in our own personal lives,
Yeah.
but as well if our church people can grab a hold of it. It's not as ominous, I think. It's kind of like, you have something to give others,
Yeah.
and because you're receiving from somebody else.
100%.
So pour in, pour out, pour in, pour out. I think that's a significant thing. Yeah. So as you look at the next 6 months or so, what are some areas that you feel you need to kind of get unstuck as a ministry? Are there things that you feel that's kind of holding us back? If we could change that would kind of open up things more for us?
Right. I would say consistency in location would be something cool or nice to have. Like we're starting to meet at Fanshaw's campus in May, and it's a trial period. Like we'll see how well it works.
Yeah.
But I just know, like from our community center, for instance, like I was able to do the bookings a year at a time, and I can always trust that I will walk in and there'll be a room set up for me, right? Now, with our Fanshawe contract, we have to do like setup and tear down. That's fine, but it's semester by semester booking, and so we're sort of at the mercy of basically like faculty, right? And whatever outside organizations want to rent is just a leftover of rooms available from when the faculty like choose, this is where I'm holding my classes, this is where we're holding seminars, XYZ, right?
So you kind of get the leftovers of that.
We get the leftovers. And so I think for everyone's sake and just for clarity's sake, if we have a consistent location, that would be wonderful and easy.
Yeah, like a local church that have their own building.
Exactly.
People know that this is where we go for church, this is where we
Exactly.
go for meetings,
Exactly.
that kind of thing. I hear you.
But yeah.
And anything else that you can think of that kind of, are things that you were hoping to overcome or change moving forward?
Yeah. I think something that we model in our home, at least with like our family Sundays and leadership cohorts, it's we modeled a culture of invitation, right? And it's not simply just invitation into like our church community and our services, but it's an invitation into our homes, into our lives. And that's been something I've really been trying to like push with our crew, right? It's if all of us model that culture of invitation, that just brings more and more people, right? And
Well, hospitality is a spiritual principle.
yes, exactly.
And in our Western culture, where our homes have become our castle and our place where we kind of get refreshed, there is this sense in which, I don't really let a lot of people into my house, kind of thing. A lot of people have that attitude. But biblically, I think, and Jesus was a great example of this, the hospitality is a real, there's a connection there between opening your home and your life to others and following Jesus.
Absolutely.
So that's something that you're hoping that your people will get a greater vision of and understanding
Yeah.
of.
And like they already do, right? Yes. I think because it's something like we've modeled well and they've been blessed by that. There's that desire to also do that. And some people count themselves out, right? Making excuses like, oh, like my home is just not hostable.
Yeah.
Right? Or like my space isn't adequate enough for people to come in, right? But it's not about the space, right? It's about the heart, right? And so, and the more intentional we get in inviting people into our lives, we get to share in just real moments. I think something that especially young people and students I encounter that they wrestle with other Christians is just the level of genuineness, right? Or authenticity in their walk, right? Because people are okay with others claiming Christ, right? But people also, with their own lens and their own agenda and bias, they'll assess, okay, are you actually like measuring up to the claim you're making? Right? And people are brutal, right? And
It can be.
And that's just, the life we adopt, the cost of following Christ, we don't get to change how other people would be with us. That's not a luxury we get. It's, we follow Jesus, we claim him to be our Savior, and if we are not shaped or transformed by the Spirit, that becomes very apparent to whoever looks at us, right?
And I think authenticity is a huge deal to the next generation. And they want to know, are you being authentic? Are you being real?
Absolutely.
Is this just a facade that you're putting on? Or is this really how you live and act and treat people? So that's a huge deal, I think, today.
Absolutely.
And I think a ministry like yours that is authentic and real and open will gain benefit from that. Because, again, they'll say, okay, I may not totally agree with everything they say, but it's a safe place where I can work through my issues and I can find answers to my questions.
100%.
And I think that's, when it comes to college ministry, university, campus ministry, I think that's really, really key for sure. Yeah, so well, this has been a great conversation, Jonny. I've actually learned a lot too from you today. But how can people get connected with you? How can they support you in prayer? And in any way, how can people help?
Yeah. I mean, so you can connect us. We have a website, so tti.church. People can look at the website, and my email, Jonny@tti.church. Can reach us there. We have an Instagram as well. Also the table. Intercultural Church. So you can search us there. But yeah, so ways that you can be praying and supporting. I mean, obviously no one's going to say no to like financial support. Everyone's going to desire that. But I would say prayer is definitely the bigger vehicle. And what we've noticed is the more people we have praying for us, or just in general, and our personal lives will attest to this, the more we see just God move in our midst, right? And because the battles we face are not like financial, logistical battles. They are, principalities, right? And they're powers of the enemy.
Right.
Like I would say, if I were to address my number one, concern or the way that the enemy would try to attack us is just fear. Right? Because the more we embody this culture of invitation and vulnerability, it's tough to screen who can come into those places.
Right.
And there's always, a thought in my mind that prevents me from being hospitable. It's like I'm trying to safeguard myself because I just don't know. But it's so prayer against that fear from slipping in. And it's wise to be cautious. You want to have boundaries and you want to protect everyone. Absolutely.
Yes.
But to the point where it starts instilling you with fear, I think that's where the enemy is getting the upper hand. And so prayer against that. Yeah. And prayer that, God continues to work in the hearts of school administration, And I mentioned this at church, and I think I've shared this at Royal View as well during their annual general meeting. But a lot of our story of the table is kind of similar to when God was using, Zerubbabel and Nehemiah and Ezra to rebuild the temple, where God doesn't speak to a believer, but he spoke to a Persian king, and they had it in their heart somewhere to allow for the rebuilding to happen.
Right.
And so echoing that prayer, that the prayer that God will speak to the hearts of school administration.
Yes. And see the need.
And see the need,
Yeah.
and allow space.
For you guys to be there and to minister. And and then as you minister, that people would respond.
Absolutely.
And because we know that there's a great need there.
100%.
Well, Jonny, it's so great to be able to talk today and to get your perspective, find out what's happening with the table, what's happening at Fanshawe, what's happening in your own life. And we certainly will be in prayer for you, for the church, for Fanshawe, for your family as it is expanding. And we know that God has good days ahead for you and for the table ministry at Fanshawe. So thanks for coming on, and thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.